So no, I'm really glad you're here, man. I know that you've done a lot in the composing world. You were just talking about that, right?
Mm,
And
yeah,
and
I guess
so,
so.
uh, well, I mean, based off of what I've seen, I try to always go and look
Yeah.
up and learn a bit. And you've certainly done a lot more than probably the average musician and the average person has done. So I'll count that as a lot. Okay,
Okay. Yeah.
I think you've done some pretty cool stuff. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So I have to ask though. So you've worked on some anime, haven't you?
Yeah. Yeah. About I think about 2 years ago, I hooked up with this guy, Mick Lauer, who's a. Are you like an anime fan, or are you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So you do you know JoJo's Bizarre Adventure?
Yes. Yes, I do.
Okay. So this is like a fan fiction series that he's done, and it's incredible. It's just like, and he does everything on it aside from the music. Um,
That's awesome.
I highly recommend it. It's like super high level quality, and I had never done music for that style of thing before, and I loved it. Yeah,
So you got to try something new.
yeah.
Were there any challenges with just working on this kind of new anime style?
That's a good question. I don't know if there were challenges. I felt like I felt really comfortable with it. I felt I love I love the animated world because you can just push your imagination way more
Yeah,
than you can.
anything's possible, right?
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah,
And if
anything is possible. I mean, I've always loved like especially what you can do with like action in anime because it can just look flawless and amazing and you know if you tried to do it live action, it's just so bad. Even with great CGI, I mean even there are times watching Marvel, some of the biggest budget, best CGI in the world and you're still like, oh, that was a little cheesy. That was a little
Yeah,
uh,
I would agree with that. Yeah, and there's something about like the animated world that just has its own it's just its own thing. Like
so
have you seen Blue Eyed Samurai?
yes, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I really enjoyed that because the animation was kind of cutting edges. It was like stuff I hadn't. The style wasn't really something I had seen before, but I just love that about the animated world. You can just really push boundaries and do interesting
It
things.
it reminds me of when we when Bob's Burgers did that one episode where they had I was like 19 different animation styles in one episode.
Oh,
It was
okay.
crazy. I mean, it was so crazy to see,
Wow.
but it was a ton of fun. I always love seeing the progression of like long-term animes too, like where they
Mm,
start and then like over the years how their techniques and their styles evolve. I always found that fun. Like Futurama is a good example of like where Futurama started and then like where it ended. Um, and then you see like big animes. I mean, popular ones like Dragon Ball Z and Naruto, and it's just really interesting to just see how anime has changed, or Disney even. Like I remember it was like the Little Mermaid and the ocean scene, and I believe that was like months of work
mm,
when she's swimming out in the ocean in the Little Mermaid. It was months of hand drawn work, and
yeah,
now
yeah,
like the ocean can be simulated so quickly through software
yeah.
and so it's crazy to see just how much changed in the anime world and then at the same time how much like we often go back and kind of appreciate the older styles for like man that just got its own expression if you will.
It does. Yeah, yeah, totally. And also the actual manpower and like personal time that people took to make it is a whole other thing. Like with the series I'm talking about, it's called Blood Sun Vendetta, and he does all the animation himself, and it's
Man,
fantastic. But it takes a
that's insane.
long time. It takes a
That's so
long time.
much work.
It is. Yeah, yeah.
Have you ever seen Daily Life of the Immortal King?
I haven't. No.
Okay, so it's a Chinese anime, and it's phenomenally done. But it's amazing. They have this one episode where the anime characters break time and space and go to the studio that makes them.
Whoa. I
And
love that. I
it was
love that.
so neat because it was actually the studio, and like they like literally were showing the anime characters what it takes to create the anime and you see like you know 30, 40 people you see these guys that like everybody thinks just because it's digital now, that means it's easier. And it's like, what people need to understand is easier is very subjective because, okay, you can say that it's quicker to do certain processes now,
Right.
but the expectation of what you deliver is also higher because those processes are easier. So it's like, it's not, it was wild. It was such a cool thing. I had never seen an anime do it like that. And it was pretty awesome to
I want to see that now. That's a great idea.
It's a great anime. I never expected it. We were what was it? I think we were just looking for, my wife and I were looking for a comedic anime, a lighthearted thing. And everybody kept saying, I think it was just everybody kept saying Daily Life, and so we checked it out, and it blew our minds.
Oh man, okay. I might have to check that out. My wife is a big anime fan, so yeah.
I used to host anime conventions all across the U.S. and stuff.
Oh really? Oh man, you're serious. That's awesome. All right. Yeah.
I liked that world. I used to do a bunch of the cosplay world too, and my buddies and I used to have a crazy wild Japanese dating show that we would do at these conventions, and
that's great.
Wild. Yeah, it was.
Oh, you would love Blood Sun Vendetta. You gotta check it out.
Okay,
I'll send you a link.
You sold me. I mean, now I know someone who worked on it too. Like, I gotta go and check it out and support. So, yeah. All right. So now, listen, I love hearing about that. So you're doing a lot in the music now. How has like what's been going on? Like, do you use social media at all for your business? Like, how does social media play any part in your life, personal or business or both?
Yeah. It's funny. I talked to a lot of my other composer friends and artist friends about this, and for a lot of them, including me as well, social media. I came on board like way back when Facebook first started. That was my first sort of social media kind of thing. I was just at the tail end of MySpace, kind of.
Oh, okay.
And I kind of liked it. But I was like, I didn't really like sharing a bunch of my personal life. I was just, that's just my life, and obviously it's grown exponentially since then.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. So like, I personally don't use Facebook much anymore, except for just like old friends who've been there for a long time. And, I don't promote any of my music stuff on there. I could be wrong, but it feels just like a crowd that's not quite, it's just more about people sort of posting about their families and political things. And,
Sure.
I could be wrong about that, but that's just how it feels. I guess it just feels old now compared to all these newer things.
So the demographics of Facebook are significantly older than pretty much every other. So I study this stuff a lot. Like, I'm always reading reports and data about it. So you're correct. Like, it's definitely an older crowd. Late 20s, early 30s is when it starts.
Oh, that's funny. Okay, yeah. So I mean, I do use it mostly Instagram, and I've actually become more active on LinkedIn, which is oddly becoming a strange social media kind of.
There's some things happening there.
Mishmash. It's interesting. Yeah. My fear is that it's actually been really useful for me to meet contacts and get some projects. But it's starting to become more like, hey, here's what I ate for breakfast. It's starting to become a little bit more
is it starting?
Yeah, a little bit, a bit. So I'm kind of hoping it stays in the business realm,
Yeah.
But yeah. So I have to be honest, it's always been a struggle for me to post on, like I said, Instagram mostly. TikTok, I just kind of stay away from because I know that it'd just be an endless rabbit hole for me that would take me away from.
Like a distraction, like you'd be viewing stuff and distracted versus working.
I think so. Yeah. And also,
they call it doom scrolling.
Doom scrolling. Yeah. As a composer, like, my favorite thing to do is compose. Like, I would much rather do that than have to construct Instagram posts and do this. Sometimes it can be kind of fun, but I feel like you definitely need to have a presence there. A lot of people get so many projects, like, all across the board, all types of arts and media from Instagram and from TikTok. Yeah. And,
I mean, there's that connection, right? I mean, we live in a world, for better or for worse, right? I think it's very subjective. It's as far as the business side of social media goes. I mean, the personal side, I think, and I'm curious your thoughts. And I think the personal side is most evidence that I can find shows that social media does way more harm than good in a personal life. But business side, I've always found it very interesting because I feel like it opened up the playing field. I mean, in ways that never existed before. And so, I mean, there's people who just make a living off of social media and what they do. I know a guy who is a very successful composer, and worked on a lot of big projects, and it was not a big social media guy. And then he started like sharing some of his takes on various compositions that he's done, and some people liked it and things like that. And eventually a marketer approached him and said, you should, I think this is how it went. I might be butchering it. And it's like, you should make a course in film composing. And so he did. And then he started to sell a lot of courses. But his brand is not like this. Here's what I had for lunch today. And it's literally just him composing and playing music and like, check out this sweet run that I did that just had this dark atmospheric vibe. And like, it was really interesting to see on the business side how, like you said, getting gigs, you hear that and then you go, that's the sound. And that's the sound I was looking for. I'm going to go hire that guy.
Yeah.
Right. And it just makes it so much arguably easier. I think, I mean, I can't say that I have access to all that data. I'd love access to it, but I can't say I have access to all that data, but it does seem like it allows, business owners and creators to potentially reach people that otherwise would never know they exist.
Totally. I think that's so true. And like, I'm in LA, so, I go to networking events, whatever, and meet people. And that's what people ask for. Like, hey, let's connect. And it's always Instagram, always. Like, you just follow them right there and boop, and that's it. Like,
okay, do you love that or hate that, or you're indifferent?
It's it's interesting.
I don't like it at all.
Yeah,
person. And so, like, the idea of having to go to Instagram and look through messages to connect with someone, to me, feels so disorganized and like a lot of extra work.
Yeah.
I'm not a business card person either, because I know myself and I know that's a lot of work to just go add someone in. So I'm like hey, Noah, here's my contact card. I'm going to send it to you. You can easily save me. And I might even send a note of like, we should talk about this.
That's actually a good idea. I do have a business card, and it's got oh my God, what the hell is that thing called? The little thing.
The QR code?
QR code. The little thing.
Listen, we've all had those moments, okay?
Yeah. And that goes straight to all my links, my email, my contact,
exactly.
Instagram, if you want to go there. That's ideal. But I do find that most people of all ages, like spanning from 20s to 60s, like they'll.
I know a guy who does physiotherapy. He's a big, muscular guy, and he's almost booked exclusively through Instagram. And I'm like, I don't know why. I mean, I don't know. I shouldn't be shocked, but I am. Like, social media is extremely popular. It's a place to reach an audience for your business. So why wouldn't you just do your communications through that? I guess it makes sense. But my brain is just like, what?
Yeah.
Like, you're booked through Instagram. That just seems like so much work.
Yeah. Well, it's a ton of work, and you're talking about people who like make a living on social media. There's a few videos that I've seen when I've been rabbit holing about like, the dark side of like running, and it's intense. Like it's not a life that I envy. It's not something I would want to do personally. It's not just like, I'm just making videos. Like, it takes a shit ton of work. Oh, sorry. I shouldn't swear.
No. Oh, believe me. We had Edgo on here. I don't know if you know Edgo, but he's good friends with Dylan too. And
oh yeah, of course, yes,
yeah. So, but it was funny. So I remember when at least for me, like 10, 15 years ago, when I really started jumping on YouTube and starting to see the possibilities of YouTube, because I discovered YouTube by accident. It wasn't like someone was like, check out this cool video, and it was on YouTube. It literally was, I was booking tickets to Anime Expo. Okay. And then I think it was like an ad was like, this K-pop group is going to be at Anime Expo or something. So I clicked the ad, and it led me to their YouTube with a video, something like that. And I was like, oh, there's a lot of videos here, right? Like, I mean, if you think about it, before stuff like YouTube, or if you knew some of the other platforms that were before YouTube, but if you didn't know, then the idea of like this centralized place where there was just a ton of videos to watch was overwhelming. It was just like, what the crap?
Yeah.
You know, iTunes, you had to pay for everything, right? YouTube was like, here's all the content, man, and go watch it. It's just like,
Yeah.
what? Yeah. But I was thinking about like how much I saw the at first I was like, this is amazing, and I started to see influencers, like the really OG like YouTube influencers who just like crappy videos, but they were consistent and were brave. And then I started getting more involved because I did a lot in music, and I was getting more involved. Then eventually I met some of them, and I went down to one of their release parties, and I started to learn about their life, and I was like, this is terrible. It's really awful. Like this girl, I won't say names, but this girl was and still is a pretty big YouTube star, and is well known for covers that she did of other artists' songs.
Okay.
And she's like, it's horrible because she's like, I always have to cover what's trending. So I'm not really picking things that I'm passionate about. I'm picking things that are just popular because I have to stay relevant. And then I have to do it within a time frame because the songs won't stay relevant for long. And so the moment the song comes out and everybody's talking about it, I have to drop everything and I have to go do the song, go do the videos, go do everything I need to do. It doesn't matter what my plans were because that's my window of opportunity. And if I miss that window of opportunity, I lose out on money. That could be the difference of, oh, I got 1 million views or I got 15 million views. And that's a huge difference, right?
Yeah.
And so I was like, that's a crappy life. Like, that's not, I mean, and I shouldn't say crappy. There's plenty who probably enjoy it and like it, but I said, that's not the life for me. I was like,
no, I would agree with that completely.
No way, man.
Yeah.
Covering other people's music for a living and working on their schedule, not your own. I don't know, man. Not for me.
It's hard, man. Yeah. It's I'll just give you a brief history of my career because it'll inform what I'm about to say. So like for a long time I was doing themes and songs and music for like television for like So You Think You Could Dance, American Idol, like at the Academy Awards, Spectrum News networks, like all stuff like that. And it was a good living and it was cool. Except after a while it wasn't soul satisfying for me. So I just dove into composing, which is just felt artistically like, oh, this is what I really want to be. Around that time, I'd really started to up my social media game. And for a while, I was doing kind of the same thing. I was kind of chasing styles, like of what people liked. I'm always doing songs as well. So with that, I was chasing that. And actually, it was Dylan who said, man, you just got to put out what you love and what you want to do. And I did that. Dylan. And it was hard at first because you want the likes. It's just addictive, right? It's that dopamine hit. Like you want the likes, you want the follow.
That's a real thing. Yeah, that's a real thing. Like there's a lot of studies that show that the likes and the comments, we chase them because it does actually involve dopamine. It trains us to pursue those things.
Totally. And even if you're skeptical or like of social media, even someone like me, I see a like oh, like it just makes you feel good for that second, you know. But you're always chasing it because it's just always somewhere else, you know. Mm-hmm. But so when I personally just started posting, and not nearly as often as I should be, but what I have been doing over the past couple of years is just posting stuff that I love that I'm doing. And that's actually, I don't know if it was because of social media or because my general mindset changed, but that's when I started to get more like shorts and movies because it was just me out there instead of trying to chase whatever was popular.
Right. I think that's a big deal. You know, I bring a lot of people, and I'll ask you this question and then I'll follow up with it. But, you know, I bring a lot of people on the show and we talk about what do you think is like the greatest problem with social media right now, you know? And I'll ask you that question and I'll tell you what other people have shared as well. So for you, Noah, what do you think is like the biggest problem with social media right now?
That's a deep question. there's a lot. I mean,
there's a lot of problems.
There's
The biggest
there's
one. What do you think?
there's a lot
Even
of
if
problems.
it's a summary of all problems into one, you know what I mean? Like, you don't have to necessarily be extremely specific, like the way that on January 2nd that they did that. No, it could be like, there's a bunch of problems and it's all part of this one big problem that I see here, you know?
Right. Okay, so if I had to sum it up into one thing, it would be the authenticity of it. So um, if myself and like people I know, a really good example is a close friend of mine years ago, not a close friend, sorry, a friend, um, a while ago, and this was again when Facebook was a big thing. So he was posting pictures of him and his wife all the time. Oh, we love each other. We're so happy. And I knew that they were in the process of like heavy therapy. Like they were going through major problems.
Mm-hmm.
Like not just, hey, we're working shit out, but it was hardcore. But the social media, his Facebook page was completely the opposite. That was the first real taste I got of that.
Yeah.
And I've just come to see that, you take a composer, for instance. I'm not going to generally post about the bad stuff that's happening. Like, oh man, I lost this gig. Oh, I didn't get that.
Yeah.
I'm going to post the good stuff. And it's only a tiny, like, microscopic slice of that, of what's happening in my life and like the broad complexity of it. And like, I feel like life is so, and this goes from political issues to social issues to our own lives. Like everything is so deep and layered. Like you can't reduce it to a hashtag or just like, winner loser.
Yeah.
And that's where social media really doesn't do well. It's not nuanced, and it just paints things in black and white, and it also paints a false picture. It can.
I love that you said lack of authenticity, right? You said that right at the beginning. 100% of the people that have come on the show so far, I'm so curious how long this track record will last. It essentially all boils down to almost the exact same thing. So some will go, social media is just one big lie and I hate it.
Mhm.
There's a lack of authenticity. Well, what is that? A lie. It's a shroud. It's unclear, right? Algorithms that are manipulative that show you things that are not true. Okay, a lie, aka a lie. So it's so far. I mean, lack of authenticity, like you said, I think that fits right into it. I think, and anybody listening who's watched the other episodes, like, correct me if I'm wrong, I think 100% of the guests who have been on the show essentially have all said the exact same thing, which is social media is essentially just this one big lie that we kind of believe, even though we know it's a lie. We get jealous of someone's highlight reel, even though we know that that's just, like you just said, it's a small sliver. But we kind of believe the lie anyway.
That's a great point, because even though I'm highly aware of this stuff, I feel the same way. I'll be like, oh, he just got, I don't know anybody who, when they're being really honest about it, doesn't feel that way.
And it's so crazy to think about it, because it's like, what the crap? Like even people I mean, you personally know, like you said, like there's a part of you that still sees the good and gets jealous or insecure. Like I know someone who's so insecure about like their current finances, and they've made really bad business decisions, and then they'll talk about how they went and bought something, and for a second I'm like, man, be nice to have that. And I'm like, what are you saying? They're miserable. Their choices are making them so miserable.
Yeah.
I don't want their life. I don't want what they have. And but we believe it. And some of us are able to realize we believe it. But I would say a lot of people don't. And that's why we chase and we seek more attention and more validation, because we're trying to prove that we kind of do have it together, and that we are worth something, and that we belong amongst all the other highlight reels that exist. Kind of like makes me think of like everyone. Imagine the whole world was invited to the Grammys, and everybody's trying to prove that they belong there, and it's just like, what a mess. Could you imagine? And this does happen, right? Could you imagine just at the Grammys and the Oscars and everything, and they're just constantly trying to prove to one another they belong there, and they stars have talked about that. Like they've talked about it. It's a ridiculous thing, and tell me your thoughts on this when I give it. Okay, it's a ridiculous thing for any star in the world to ever get upset that they didn't win an award. The heck? How in your life could you be so entitled and so, and I don't even mean in a mean way because they're conditioned, just like the rest of us are on social media. They're conditioned in their own way. So I'm not even being mean to them. I'm trying to be objective. How could you be so disconnected from reality that as you sit in the power and wealth and influence that you have, you go, but I didn't get it all.
Mm.
I only got most of what people would dream about, but I didn't get it all. And therefore, I'm going to boycott this and I'm going to trash talk that person. And I'm not talking about people who go like, hey, listen, I don't like the concept, or I don't like the voting process of how the Grammys work, so I'm just not going to participate. They're respectful about it, but still honest. No, that's cool. Go do your thing, right? Like, you know, like there's people out there who I don't agree with them when they say, I don't vote in the elections. You're right, man. And I respect it. I just don't want to hear you complain about politics.
Right.
Right. And so it's like, so what was, I mean, do you think I'm right? Do you think that when you see a star out there, I mean, this just happened, right? I don't remember. It was the Grammys that I think just happened. I can't keep track, to be honest. And there were several people who were like, oh my gosh, this person's had 19 nominations. They've had 72 best-selling albums, but they didn't get the award. And I'm like, 72 best-selling albums, bro. Like, calm down.
Well,
you're okay.
Yeah. But that totally brings up something else that's related to what we're talking about, which is that, like, and also goes with likes and followers. You get that stuff, and it doesn't like and look, I've won a few awards, okay?
Yeah.
And when I got up there to take it, like, you're like, oh, cool, I won an award. And then as soon as I got it, and this is just me, my dad was a very famous classical oboist, and I didn't even know that until I was in college because he was so humble. He didn't want anybody to think of him as a star. Like, I literally had no idea how famous he was till I was in college.
Yeah.
So my experience was when I get these awards, I'm like, cool. And then it's like, like, because you expect it to feel like, oh yeah, I'm going to get it. Or like, I'm going to get that big house. I'm going to get that car. I'm going to get that thing. I'm going to get followers. I'm going to get this. I'm going to get that. And you get those things and they don't provide you what you might have been conditioned to think they would.
Yeah.
So that's my opinion on awards in general. I'm grateful that I've won a few, but like, and it's hard to not keep on wanting more. So I get that.
Yeah, I mean, it is a form of addiction. In the business sense, are absolutely your business will make statistically will make a big difference if you have more awards.
Yeah,
because they go, clearly this guy is more capable. Now that's not true. That's not true. There's no evidence to support that you are or are not more capable based off your award count. There are people who have awards, and that doesn't make them right for the job. It doesn't make them the best person. And there are people who do have awards, and they are the right person for the job. But our brains are conditioned. Our brains are conditioned to believe that an award does equal merit, even if we don't know how the award is issued, even if we don't know the criteria. You think anybody out there really knows why this person has a Grammy? Like the average consumer. You think they won't know anything about how the Grammy voting process works? Oh, they just inherently accept something they know nothing about. Yeah,
it's funny. I was a voting Grammy member, and I let my membership expire. I didn't give a shit anymore. Like I lost maybe, gosh, for a while that's been happening. Like I haven't watched the Academy Awards. Probably sacrilege to say since I'm a composer, but I haven't watched it in probably 20 years. Like since I was really young.
I hear the pitchforks. They're coming.
I just don't really care. It doesn't affect the music that I like, the films that I like. Like that's what's important. I've gotten to the point where I don't care if someone else likes it or not. Like, you know,
it's a level of prestige that's never made sense to me.
Totally.
I mean this in such a respectful way too, because it's not like the stars participate in any of these things or the artists or whatever. They didn't create the system. It was built long before them. And I understand the idea of it. It's such a weird concept if you really think about it, because everywhere else in the world we get pissed off and royalty is treated even better than they essentially, and I mean this respectfully, deserve. And so like I know people who are like, you know, looking at the royal family in UK and being like, look at them being spoiled, and then they complain. And I'm like, but then you turned around and complained about so-and-so not winning the Grammy. You're advocating on the idea of entitlement. You're advocating for it. People of great power and great wealth deserve more simply because they have great power and great wealth. And what's crazy is that the same stars, again, we'll focus on Grammys, that talk about artists and being different and uniqueness and don't put chains around art are the same people who are mad that there isn't a process for them to win. And it's like, album, what does that even mean? What the crap is the best album?
It doesn't mean anything.
You know what I'd love to see is awards that are based off of like undeniable, unique things that happened. Right? So like, I think awards based off statistics make a lot of sense. Okay. Kind of like employee of the month type of people, right? Where it's like award-based sales. Oh, you sold the most, therefore you won an award based off sales. Okay. I think that's an irrefutable thing that most people are going to be, that makes sense, right?
Sure. It's like data-based.
Exactly. Yeah. Or we go really unique things to you, right? Let's say, Noah, you were playing, you were composing, and you were the first composer to ever use grilled cheese in a soundtrack. I'm not even kidding. I would much rather see you win an award for like most bizarre instrument used in composition.
I like that. I like that idea.
But it makes sense. Now, here's the cool part too. I actually learned something about you. It actually meant something, and it was unique to you. And you won because you were being you, not because you were trying to facilitate. Nominated this time, I'm owed this award. What?
Right.
Get out of here, right?
Yeah. You know what's even
so much fun?
I mean, yeah. It's, you know what's even stranger? So yesterday, there's this thing here called Italy, which is like this. I think they have one in New York. It's like this sort of Italian market with like these. It was started by Mario Batali, who I think has been canceled. He's like some famous, hugely famous chef, and my friends and I are we're all foodies, and so we're eating this is amazing food, and then we started talking, and I said, you know what's wild about this? So Mario Batali, who arguably is one of the most famous chefs, if you're into that kind of thing. The guy next door cooking for his family might be a better cook or as good, but nobody will ever know about him. And it's just all this publicity and like marketing that brings somebody up there. I'm not denying that Mario Batali has, I'm sure, done some great things. Right. But as far as like becoming such the exalted, like there are probably hundreds and thousands of people around the world just in their kitchens who are cooking insanely amazing food. And to me, it was just interesting to think about that. Like, wow.
Social media proved that. Like, just like, I mean, one of the most eye-opening things, and it was really awesome, and then it was almost sad, and then it was kind of like, okay, now I accepted the fate type of thing, is that I had passed through a few of the auditions to be on The Voice. Never got televised, but I was on a few of them, and very bold person. I'm not afraid to ask questions. I'm the guy who goes, unless you tell me I can't walk into the room and talk to executive producers, I'm going to walk into the room and just talk to executive producers. I'm not afraid, right, of those things, because I'm like, what's the worst that's going to happen? I'm not going to be on the show anyway. So like at one point, I got through a few auditions, and if you've been through this process or this process, they're actually horrible processes. I mean, they're just, and I'm not saying that in a bad way or a good way. I'm just saying they're grueling. They're just a grueling process. You come in the crack of dawn, you're there all day, you're fatigued. And even if you try not to talk too much, you're so much going on. You talk too long to too many people. Your voice is burned out by the time you ever even get to an audition. And then you get into the audition. It's not what it looks like on TV. That's like way, way, way farther down the line. You have like 12 people in a room together, and you're supposed to go up for 30 seconds. Sometimes, like when I did America's Got Talent, and I made it a bit there too.
Wow.
So we went into the small room. There's 3 pop-up desks. the most disinterested interns or PAs I've ever seen in my life. And maybe they're meant to be, so I'm not judging them for that. Maybe they're meant to be stone cold, right? Don't give emotion. They're the ones who decide who goes. It's not the judges. At that point, I should say. And so I stand up and I'm like, this is not what I was expecting. I look to me and a guy's already singing on my left. And then this girl's looking at me and she says, go ahead. And I'm like, go ahead. I'm like, I'm listening to this guy sing. I can't even remember my own lyrics. Like, what am I doing here? Like, it's a crazy process. But my long-winded point was what I was trying to make is that those shows have showed us that there are an unbelievably amount of talented people. An unbelievable. Look at American Idol. Go back through every season, and almost every season sounds the same. And I mean that in a respectful way, meaning almost every season is filled with people who can meet all of the criteria of a skilled singer.
Yeah.
Wild.
Yeah. And like social media has been amazing for that. Just seeing at the same time, I don't know if you've experienced this, but for me, I'm so overloaded that I actually don't want to see another like incredible guitar. I can't take anymore. Like it's cool, but like I don't have any more like room in my brain to handle it. Like, okay, there's another like insanely amazing, flamenco guitar player. It's too much. It's like I'm personally overloaded,
It's funny too, because it's those catch-22. So I know a few influencers, and they say it's always a really hard balance between you have to leave a level of mystery. I'm like, and I don't mean to think it this way, but it's hard not to. Are you really that amazing?
Right.
Are you really that amazing? Because when I was growing up, what felt amazing was because it was isolated. I meet hundreds of people, growing up in my life, school, work, whatever, and one person plays the guitar like he's Jimi Hendrix, right? One person. And so then that person is the best guitarist I've ever known in my life, and they're amazing, and they could totally have played with Jimi Hendrix type of thing, right? But then I see on social media, I'll see 100 of them in 5 minutes. And I'm like, it almost takes the magic away. Right?
That's an interesting way to put it. I think that's it. I think you nailed it right there. It does kind of take the magic away. Because it used to be a world where it's kind of curated. Yeah. Like we only got what was siphoned down to us through the powers that be, whether it's a record label or a movie, house or whatever, which had its pros and cons. The cons is it's just in that world, so you don't get a lot of like raw artistry happening,
Right.
It's very
and it's
curated.
so gate kept.
It is, yeah.
Like politically driven. Like we know this. We all know this. They don't
Totally,
have it anymore.
totally. Yeah.
So like right. So this comes with big pros and big cons at the same time.
Yeah. Have you read that book, The Chaos Machine?
I have not.
You will love it.
Yeah.
It's basically I forget what the subtext of the title is, but it's basically how social media has really damaged a lot of parts of the world, especially like war zones, and you will love that book. But it talks about a lot of the stuff, like the psychological sides of it all. It goes into sort of the psychology. The first part of the book is talking about the psychology and like why we do what we do, why we go down the rabbit holes, like on YouTube, for instance, and how it's curated. You're going to like this. So a few weeks ago, I just read a chapter of that book about YouTube and how the algorithm works and how it guides you towards the angrier, more messed up stuff. So I thought I would just
a good book.
Right.
Actually tells the truth.
Right. So I thought, you know what? I had like an hour, and I'm like, I'm going to try it. I'm going to start with a video that I would normally maybe watch. Like I'm really into modular synthesis. So I was like, okay, I'm going to watch one of my favorite guys just explain this module. I'm like, all right, cool. And then I looked at recommended videos, and I purposely like went for the ones that were more like, this module sucks. How can they, like the stuff that you naturally gravitate towards, because we do tend to gravitate towards the negative stuff. That's just a human. I think that's built into us as animals, just to be self-protective. Mm-hmm. But in our world now, it doesn't really have as much of a use. But and I wish I could remember where I ended up. But over the course of about 40 minutes or so, I didn't watch every video, but I just started clicking like where it led me. Sure. And I kid you not, and I wish I could remember where it led me, and I didn't try to get there. I was just following stuff that got angrier and angrier, more and more intense, and I just purposely clicked on those. I went from a modular synth video to some like conspiracy theory, and that to me, like, I had to see for myself. And I'm not saying for everybody it would happen that fast, or maybe it would happen faster for some.
I'd be curious if anybody listening, like, tell us.
That's what happened.
What's your experience? Because
that was my experience. Yeah, when I purposely tried that.
I'm with you on that, because I'm very open. So I'm a Christian. I'm very open about my beliefs, my morals, and things like that.
Yeah.
And I have a very strict moral code. I mean, if you're a real Christian, you have a strict moral code that you try to keep to. And it's pretty simple. It's not complex. It's pretty simple stuff. If you're married, you try to be a faithful husband, and you're not going after other women. It's very basic stuff. Okay. But I'm very open about the struggles, because I get so pissed off about how much the world wants me to be unfaithful to my wife. And I'm so angry about it. And I try not to be, but it's so hard, because I'm a man. I'm already built with selfish, innate, lustful desires. Whether you believe in God or not, everybody knows that. Men typically, they see a hot woman and they absolutely want to chase her, sleep with her. We know that. Like, that is not some secret that
right. It's nature. It's like built into our DNA, exactly. Right? It's in there, right?
And so then you get married, and I go, I want to be a good, faithful husband. And that means that I don't want to go down the rabbit hole of lust. I know it exists, of course, and that will never not exist as long as I'm a man. Literally, men can make babies to the day they die. So it doesn't go away. It doesn't.
Right.
And I'm so angry, because I'll get on social media. And the example you just gave is phenomenal, right? Okay, so what I'll do is I'll go, and this just happened to me. I went and I looked up, I'm big on health. And I'm also pretty big on like natural maintenance of the body, like just minimal things like drinking tea. I'm looking at like, how do acupressure mats work? I mean, there's not a lot of good data, but I'll try it out. So I'll go and I'll give you an example. I went and looked up like some reviews about acupressure mats. It's just little spiky mats that you lay on to relieve tension and stuff like that. Okay, cool. So I'm looking it up. Very innocent. Would you agree?
Yeah.
As long as I'm telling you the truth, right? You would agree. Hey, show me a review of an acupressure mat. Now, here's what happens, right? I'm going to watch a few reviews, because I'm not going to believe the first person, obviously, right? And
right.
And half of them are paid by the companies that sell them. So then you got to go find some other ones. Here's where my playlist started to change. And this is what makes me so frustrated and so angry. All of a sudden, it went from being about this mat to being a little bit more towards some yoga. Okay, no, I'm cool with that, right?
This is on YouTube, right?
On YouTube, okay? And yoga. And then all of a sudden, there were women popping up doing yoga, but they were barely clothed. And then it went even deeper then. And I'm like, okay, well, listen then. When I work out, I'm actually barely clothed. I get hot pretty fast. So I'm like, okay, like maybe innocence is here. Then, I kid you not, it's pictures of women bending over in sundresses saying they're doing yoga. And I'm like, I know what you're doing here. You know that if I go down that rabbit hole, I'm not coming back. Because it goes into my nature. If I do that, I'm going to watch, let's be real, I'm going to watch a lot more of that than I am what my original intent was. So YouTube doesn't actually want me to find the answer I'm looking for, because then I'll get off YouTube.
Right. Yes.
So they go, okay, we're going to give him what he initially wanted so he doesn't get mad and leave YouTube. We're going to give him some of those reviews. But if we can hook him, if we can just hook him with the things that he doesn't need, what he wants, right? And I'm being honest, right? Carnal desire, the things we want, not necessarily are good for us, and we don't need them, but we want them.
Right.
We can hook them there. Instead of Robert being online for 30 minutes, he's going to be online for an hour, an hour and a half. And that makes me angry because I genuinely want to be a good and faithful husband.
Right.
I do. I really do. And YouTube says, I could care less.
Yeah.
I want you online, and I will do anything I can to make sure you stay here.
That's a great example, and that's a lot of what that book was actually talking about. That exact thing about appealing to whether sex for men at least is, and I know for plenty of women too, but for men it's yeah.
I mean, it's
science.
like
one of the biggest
anatomy. We're not.
Yeah.
Generalizing based off of the studies we know, which is
exactly
men overall have a way bigger sex drive than
right.
women do. That's
and we're also more turned on visually, generally speaking.
Oh yeah, hands down.
In that direct way. So sex and also, like I was saying, the negativity bias that most humans have, and again, we have it for an evolutionary reason, which we don't need anymore so much because a lot of us live lives that aren't really rife with danger every second. But that's kind of why we're like, oh, like the negative stuff, it grabs a hold of you and and it just pulls you down deeper. And that's why, as I'm sure you know very well, that's why people in their videos, like the title card, the video might be, oh, I love bunnies, they make me happy. But the title might be why evil corporations want to destroy you with their bunnies. That's a terrible example. But
it's a great example because it's actually true how far people will go to get the attention that, and this is two sides. It's their side, but it's also the algorithm that the algorithm says they need to do, right? Here's the thing, and I mean this in a respectful way. Go back to my story because I want to keep it in design there, okay? Mm-hmm. It has to be. Like, you don't make a thumbnail of you wearing a sundress bending over where you can even see what's under the sundress. You don't do that out of accident. That's not an accident. Like, you had a camera angle. There was an intently designed, okay? But if that didn't get them the views, if the algorithm didn't reward that, we already know in history that people would change. They're trying to make money. So they're going to do whatever it takes to make money. And it's no different than someone creating clickbait, right? I really adore Mr. Beast. But he talks about it. He's like, the algorithm, I have to do the most extreme. He said he spends, get this, $10,000 on thumbnails.
Whoa.
Because he said a good thumbnail is the difference between 5 million and 50 million views.
Oh my God, really? Interesting.
And so now you go, okay, the algorithm, there's individual responsibility, but then it's also like the algorithm. The algorithm tells them that you have to be these extreme things because the algorithm doesn't want you to find what you're looking for. They want you to find almost what you're looking for so that you keep looking. Because if we get what we want, we leave. When we buy what we want at the store, we leave. We check out.
Right.
Right. That's as simple. So the that's why, like, Costco puts their roasted chicken in the back because people go, I'm going to go to Costco, get a cheap roasted chicken. Tastes delicious. They're amazing. It's a loss leader. Costco loses money on those every year. If they put it right at the front, guess what would happen? I'd walk in, grab the roasted chicken, and I'd walk out. It's as simple as that. But now I grab a shopping cart and I go all the way through everything, the vast majority of the things that I need and or would want to buy to get to the simple item that I said I wanted. And I don't think they're wrong for that, by the way. I think that's good marketing. I think it's smart. I don't think it's deceptive. Nobody's forcing someone to come buy a cheap roasted chicken. Like, it's a good offer. But the algorithms in social media, like, in other words, there's nothing negative about a roasted chicken. Okay. Right. We're not exercising political, like, oh, this is a right wing or left wing chicken. And this is like, listen, we want you in our doors. So we're going to have heavily discounted chickens to get you into the door. We're going to
Right.
put them back here. So you have to, I think that's pretty fair marketing. Nobody's forcing you to buy, but the
Sure.
algorithms on social media, the more we dive into, the more we realize it is so deeply rigged against us. My family, my life will be impacted if I don't play a game that's corrupted. And it's like, what a crappy position to be in.
Yeah. When you put it that way, no, it is. And it's, and you mentioned it before. It's, I personally feel that one of the biggest challenges humanity has always had is greed. And this is all powered by greed. It's all powered by money and more money, more money. So whenever something is powered by money, in my opinion, it's usually going to be a losing proposition for many people.
And like you said, like the awards, you'll never have enough. And I believed that lie too. I really did. I've been poor most of my life, and then I got into real estate, and I was fortunate to build a successful business in that. And I started making more money than I ever imagined. Mm-hmm. And I told myself, "Oh, the first 100,000, this is it." Man, I didn't even notice. I didn't even notice the first 100,000. When my CPA was like, "Hey, you made $140,000," I was like, "Oh, it didn't feel any different." I'm not happier. Not to say I was miserable. I'm just saying that achievement meant nothing. And then you go and you make 200,000, and then 300,000, and it all kind of just feels the same. Now, don't get me wrong. There's comforts, right? I'm big on eating organic and all natural when I can. That's an that affords me that, and that does make me feel happier about health. I'm like, okay, this is something important to me, and I'm really proud. I try very hard to be a generous person. I believe in gifting and benevolence. I'm a Christian, right? So we believe in that. And so the fact that I could help pay people's medical bills, I could tip an Uber driver $100. All of that is awesome, right? Those are great things, and I'm really glad I had those. But again, it wasn't the money that made me feel good. It wasn't the award that made you feel good. Right? At the end of the day, it is what you do in life impacts the people you want to impact that makes you feel good or bad about yourself.
Right. I think that's a good assessment. And even yourself. I mean, I've spoken, like many composers and other artists, some who are hugely successful. I won't name them by name, but we've had discussions about this, and we all say the exact same thing. The joy is in the doing of the music. That's where the real joy is. Like all the accolades that some people get, and it's nice in that moment, but you just want to go back and create because that's where your joy is in the doing of it. You know, it's not really of the result as much. And it's easy to say when you're let's say, Hans Zimmer and like making, insane amounts of money on the biggest movies on earth. But
insane, truly.
I would for him also. It's the same thing. It's the doing of the music where the real passion and drive comes from. In the end, experience. It was probably, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the work you did to initially make that money, I'm sure you were like really into it. And and then you got it. You're like, oh, okay, I want to do more.
And that's all it was. That's right. The pursuit of the money was just to unlock more opportunity, go make a ton of money. Absolutely. But really consider how, why, and where you're going with it, because don't let that be the destination. You're going to be miserable. You will 100% be miserable. If money is your goal, if a mansion's your goal, if the Ferrari's your goal, you will be miserable. You will. There isn't a single report out there that says because that guy owned a Ferrari, his life turned around and he was the happiest person that ever lived.
Yeah, I would bet my life that that's never happened for anybody.
All right, so now let's talk positive. Okay.
Yeah.
Give us something that you would love, like if you could change one thing about social media or create a new social media idea, concept, platform, what would you do?
Man, I don't know.
I know, big questions, right?
That's a big question. Yeah. It's hard
not to get stuck on the negativity, so I love
of course.
about it.
It's easy to go there. Yeah.
Right. And then let's talk about some good stuff. What
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
we do to change social media? What's one big change, you know? It's a fun question though.
It is. It is. It's a really fun question. I don't know, man. Yeah, I mean, I actually want to figure it out now, but offhand, like I'm not really a business style, like my brain doesn't work well that way.
Well, you don't have to be. It's you know, it can be
But
an emotional thing. So, like for instance,
mm,
I've had some people who are like more regulatory. They're like, oh, if I could change one thing about social media, it would be I want to hold the social media companies way more accountable. Okay, that's what they want to do.
right.
But then I've had people who are like, man, I would just want people to be more authentic. I want to create a platform. I'm not telling you have to have a whole business plan and every detail planned out, but like, what's one thing that maybe this is a better question? What's one thing that you would love to see change about social media?
I would like to see a way to have people use it more as a tool instead of it being embedded in their entire life. That's
I think so. Can you explain a little more though?
Yeah. And I'm going to use an example, and I've done it myself. But like we have an 18-month-old daughter, and I'll take her out for walks, you know, and I see a lot of parents who are with their kids, and like the whole time the parents are just on their phone. So like, what I would like to see would be some way to change that, so we can still use social media, because it does have some positive things. Absolutely,
Yeah.
The connectedness, the ability to see, like we're talking about, talent from around the world that you would never see otherwise. A way to maintain that, but somehow, and I have no idea how this could be achieved, but somehow encourage or get people to not be so tethered to it throughout their entire day.
I think if we looked at social media more like a store, and I don't mean ads, I mean where we have an objective for being there, and less about a distraction. I don't know many people, and I'm specifically talking about grocery shopping. I'm not talking about browsing on Amazon endlessly. I'm talking about when someone goes out to go to the grocery store, they usually have a shopping list. They're looking for necessities, maybe a couple things they weren't looking for, but they're not there all day. You never heard someone who's like, oh, I went to the grocery store. Again, not talking about Amazon people. I've yet to meet anybody who's like, I went to the grocery store, I had my grocery list, and I was there for 6 hours. And I don't know anybody. They go there. Maybe it took a little bit longer. And usually when it takes a little bit longer, it's because the tellers were not available, right? One called in sick, or the self-checkouts were down, or they were out of stock of the one item. In other words, there was an intent, and there was a purpose, and there was a focus. And when you achieve that, the goal is to get back to your real life as soon as possible. So the goal is that I want to go and do these things, but it's I'm done, I get off. Right. And you know, we've actually been, I would argue, we've actually been pretty good at that prior to social media, because I really believe that I'm going to ask you a question, and then you're going to prove or disprove what I'm about to do. Saw in theaters, and it's okay if it was years ago. I know lots of people have not seen movies in theaters, but can you think of the last movie or a movie you saw in theaters anytime?
I saw the most recent was Reboot.
Oh, Maverick. Yes. Maverick, okay. So you went to the movie theater, correct?
No.
And then after that one, you didn't go to a third one?
Oh, of course. No. We just went home.
You had a purpose. And when
in high school, I might have done
that. Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, those were times. But you had a purpose, and once that purpose was fulfilled, it was more about basking in the moment with people that you love, sharing the moment with people you love, not looking for the next distraction. That's
the interesting way to look at it. Yeah.
But here's here's why it's different than social media. The thing is that social media won't give you Top Gun Maverick. They'll give you stuff about Top Gun Maverick. Right. They'll give you stuff like Top Gun Maverick. They'll help you buy every article of clothing and your own fighter jet from Top Gun Maverick, but they won't give you what you're looking for because they don't want you to get off. While movie theater says, here's your movie. Here's the price for your movie. I don't care if it's inflated. I don't care if, this is what it is to get what you want. And guess what? you get it. And when you're done getting it, you leave.
Yeah.
And that's called relevancy. That's called relevancy. They give you something that's relevant to you, which is the thing that you're looking for.
Right.
Right. And so I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think kind of what you're saying is like, you know, parents, so I don't think it's intentional. Okay. I know for me, it wasn't intentional. I would just get online and I would be down the rabbit hole before I could even realize I was down the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
And so I had to be very careful. It was a lot of work to get out of that habit. And so I think, you know, parents, friends, I mean, could you imagine I was checking my phone this whole time and that happens, right? And it's like, we're so addicted and conditioned that if we're not on social media, like life is unbearable. And that it's better on social media versus I think it should be an enhancement to life, not a deterrent from living.
Yeah.
Put that one on a shirt.
That's good. Yeah. I like that.
Well, listen, Noah, man, it has been a blast.
Yeah, same, man. That was an awesome conversation. Really, really cool. Yeah. And read the Chaos Machine. I would be interested to hear your thoughts on
Chaos
it.
Machine.
I have a feeling.
What I'll do, I'll read it, and then you'll come back on, and then we'll have a conversation where we get to talk about.
That's great. I'm not done reading it yet, so that's perfect.
Okay, good. I have time because I got other books to finish, so perfect.